Welcome to Small Worlds Big Adventures. My name is Scott. Today we're discussing Dungeons & Dragons campaigns. Specifically, we're wrapping up the short series on the Groundhog Day campaign that we had discussed before and why it's coming to an end. The main reason why we are ending the campaign has to do with life situations and changes, which sadly is probably the reason for 90% of campaigns ending. We've gotten a lot busier over the last year, and at this point, due to a planned move, probably won't be able to complete the campaign before we move, and we need more time to be able to do things like prepare the house and a number of other projects. This does give me an interesting opportunity to kind of talk about where the campaign was, and gives me the opportunity to take what I learned in the campaign and put that towards very likely redoing the campaign at a future date. Playing through the game, the basic idea of it did seem to work pretty well. The players were definitely into it. The idea of being a little underpowered at the beginning and dying and then restarting and having a second chance to both come at the enemies in kind of those combat encounters, but also to toy around with what's going on with the village worked. It felt pretty good. I really enjoyed it. We definitely hit a spot where I needed to have a little bit of filler because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted some of the interim stuff to go to get where I felt the day needed to end up, and that's definitely on a rewrite I'm going to have to look at. Is I want there to be a big bad at the end of the day, but I don't just want the players to run right up to that and see that essentially the first time through. Reworking it, even as we were playing, I toyed around a little bit with how things would work out. So right at the beginning, the players encounter these rat men that are attacking the town, and they kidnap a bunch of children, and the idea was they were going to defeat those rat men and then move on to the next sort of phase of the day. But then we ran into a spot where they just basically said, "Oh, we're not even going to deal with the rat men," which of course I should have seen coming. But then my question had to be, what am I going to do for the rest of that day? Do I introduce the next villain? Do I not introduce a villain? But again, other than what the players are doing, the day needed to be essentially the exact same every time. In rethinking it, what I needed was, soon after the rats kidnap the children, they probably attack the town in large numbers, that the rats have to be dealt with one way or another. And on a rewrite of the adventure, that's almost certainly what's going to happen. When we played, instead of the rats, I had orcs, which had been planned for the campaign to attack the town. And then almost as soon as I introduced that, I kind of regretted it and wasn't quite sure where to go from there. And that was kind of the problem, was anything that you do off the cuff with a campaign like that essentially has to become canon and explained in some fashion. It wouldn't have been a big problem going forward, but it wasn't quite the narrative that I wanted it to be. We had a lot of fun with a lot of the mechanics, and really didn't get to some of the mechanics. One of the things that we really enjoyed were, in order to level up, they were essentially doing various achievements that were getting marked, and that would either level them up or have a permanent effect in some fashion. The first one was the first time the party died, then they leveled up once. And these were marked, and the players were just starting to realize this as we were playing, was there were essentially magical candles on their carriage that were lighting every time they achieved one of these achievements, which they were just starting to figure out, and I think was a fun little mechanic, and everybody seemed to be enjoying that. The original idea was every time they died, they would level up, and I think we discussed that in the last time we talked about this. The problem with that is if you have a power gaming group that just essentially kill themselves over and over again until they hit level 20, and that basically ruins that campaign. Is essentially not fun, and it certainly isn't what you want out of that campaign. The fun of that campaign, hopefully, is not only running into villains that are a little hard at the first time you encounter them and then defeating them later, but also getting to explore the town and the people who live there and sort of finding out what the fun of that would be getting to know the town and the people who live there and discovering their routine through the day and perhaps altering it or having an effect on those routines. And we got into that a little bit, and certainly the players seem to be enjoying, now we know where the kids are before they get kidnapped, so we can stop them from getting kidnapped, and we know where the people who live in the inn that we show up at are at, what they're doing, and the players definitely seem to be getting into that, which was definitely a big goal for me for the campaign. Was if that doesn't work and if that's not fun, this campaign essentially falls apart. But the players seem to be enjoying that. One of the mechanics that we didn't get to, because I didn't get very far with the rats hideout, we wanted there to be a system to unlock doors that you couldn't necessarily unlock early, and the idea essentially is there's a series of glyphs that the players get to collect as they move along through the day, that then you can go back and unlock doors that you couldn't have gotten the first time, kind of like a video game might do. I think that system would have worked, but we didn't get essentially to the point of actually doing it. And I might, rewriting the campaign, that's something I'll probably tweak and mess around with a little bit more, because I think that system would work well in certain puzzles and stuff as well, not just locks for doors and stuff, and might make that a bigger part of the campaign as the players go through it. And that's basically as far as we got through playing. So going forward, for my group anyways, what I think is going to work for us, we figure about 1.5 years, 2 years, kind of depending on how things are going to move. Probably not shorter than that, and possibly longer depending on if life stuff happens. So we're looking at 1.5 to 3 years. But in that time, we've got a lot of projects that we need to finish up, not just packing up a house, but fixing things and getting stuff ready. And there's also stuff in our personal lives that we want to do before we move, like seeing specific touristy things here before we're gone. Don't have really a chance to do that again. So in that time, we found that we've been able to play a lot less than we had, which is part of why we're abandoning the campaign and moving on to something else. So what I've decided to do is I'm essentially just going to run a series of one-off adventures, short, not campaigns, just little adventures. The first one I'm going to run is from the starter box for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which is Lost Mines of Phandelver, which I feel is a really good adventure. It's a little on the longer side than what I originally planned, but I have the materials for it. It's a good adventure, and that might end up taking us close to the end. I think what we're going to do, since they're going to be looser adventures, not campaigns, is basically just say, hey, here's a couple of days for the next month that we can play. Let's pick one of those. Anybody who can't play just doesn't play that month, and we'll just count their characters as essentially hand wave it away and not worry about it, which is what I've done in the past when players can't make it to a session, just so that we can consistently play. The original idea for the other campaign had been, well, we'll play a little bit less off, or a little more often, but shorter sessions, and that just didn't end up working out for us. Again, things just got busy, so we're going to go back to slightly longer sessions, not all day sessions, but instead of just shooting for 4 hours, we'll probably shoot for 5 or 6 per session, and shoot for once a month, because sadly as adults it's hard to get a number of people together more often than that. In fact, we've not hit once a month so far in a little while for various reasons. I am excited to play some of these shorter adventures. We've been doing campaigns for the most part, really for the last decade or so, with a couple of exceptions. I ran one of the Candlekeep Mysteries, which the adventure wasn't a disaster, but that adventure that I chose was really bad. you know it if you know Candlekeep Mysteries. We've done a Yuletide game almost every year for the last 4 years, give or take. Those aren't quite one-offs because they have a continuing narrative, but they all are their own individual little thing. And so this is kind of getting back to D&D basics in a lot of ways, of just a quick adventure that you throw a couple characters together and go fight some stuff and enjoy some things, and you're not worried about long-running player background and conspiracies and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun in a campaign, but also you can take this a little more lighthearted and not worry about it, which is also a good reason why if a player can't make it to a session, it's not as big a deal because you don't have to worry about, this is important because their background has a lot to do with this, which in a lot of my campaigns we've had a lot of. This we won't be seeing quite as much. Phandelver is a really good adventure. It's just a little on the long side for a beginning thing. It's not a campaign, but it goes on for a little while. It's a great introductory one though, because you've got a lot of stuff that you're doing in it. Some dungeons, some caves, a dragon, a lot of fun to be had there. After that, I plan to do an adventure that I've written myself, One Night in Gold Rock, which I've run now a couple of times. Probably rewrite it again and have it put down, and there's a good chance we'll be linking something to it on our website or something. We'll see how that goes. That's if we have time to run it, depending on when we end up moving. One way or another, that will end up on our site after we move. The idea will be to find another group and continue playing. We don't plan to stop after we move by any stretch, but D&D could be a little while. It's hard to say. This is one of those things where it took me a while and I had to think about it for quite a bit to decide whether or not I was going to continue the campaign as it is and just get as far as we could in it before we move, or whether I wanted to start something else. And that decision's always hard to make, especially if you're deep into a campaign. Sometimes players leave, sometimes life changes, and you've got to drop a campaign, even a long-running one. And we have in the past done that, and that can be hard to do, and those decisions aren't ever easy to come by. But sometimes they are the right decisions, and this one I'm positive it is. I'm excited to play the Phandelver thing. If you're moving over and want to, I'm pretty sure you can get the starter box for about $20. A lot of the other stuff, if you're a player of D&D already, isn't going to help you out a whole lot. There's a really small sort of rules book you could hand out to maybe new players, but the adventure that's in there for $20 is pretty decent. It's a little thin in a couple of spots, and there are some online blogs and some help there if you're looking to expand that out, and I've definitely looked into some of that, so it won't be exactly out of the box, but the advantage to those things is a lot of times you can just pull that out and you just start playing. You don't have to have a lot of prep necessarily for something like that, so that can be also really handy for a DM who is very busy. If you have played Lost Mines of Phandelver, you should comment down below and let me know what your favorite parts were and what you enjoyed about it. That way I can consider that when we actually start playing. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this short series on the campaign that we discussed. Hit the notification bell to see when our next video goes up. We're doing a lot of RPG horror stories, but we also have some video game plays and some board game reviews. And there's always a little bit of something going on. So thank you for joining us, and see you next time.